also the director of the UMass Field Station. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get
Say
started?
hello to all the Nantucket semester students that are here today.
Do we have any Nantucket semester students in the house?
They're revitalizing downtown. He says
Yeah,
this week.
ladies and gentlemen, we have an audience that's expanded by quite a bit by having these guys here all around. They have remarked to us that they feel like rock stars as they walk into places because there are places that are really kind of not really happening right now. They walk in and all of a sudden they say, hey, there's somebody else on the island. We're glad that they're here. We're glad that they're doing some work, and we'll be hearing from them in a little bit. And hey, Bob. Hey, Deb. We always like to start out with a little bit of music, and we're very fortunate to have a very good friend in Paul Connors, who's going to be doing some St. Patty's Day music, I think. What's going on with that hat? I think that's what's happening here. So, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Connors.
Come from a place called South Boston. I was born down on A Street, raised up on B Street. And which is, largely an Irish neighborhood. And I grew up listening to, my source for Irish songs was primarily Bing Crosby. So I knew Irish American songs. And then with the advent of the Quincy Brothers, the whole world opened up for Irish music. I'm going to sing, I haven't asked money for permission, I'm going to sing 3 songs. 2 of which are Irish, and 1 is Irish American. And I'll start off with a lovely Irish ballad. Thank you. I'll try first here at Tommy Macon. I know how valley fair, I need no room. I know a cottage there, I need a room. Far in the valley shade, I know a tender babe, flower o'er the hazel glade, I need a room. Oh, in the song so sweet, I need a room. Oh, in the dance so fleet, I need a room. Dear are her charms to me, dearer her constancy. I need a room. Were she no longer true, I need a room. What would her lover do? I need a room. Fly with a broken chain, far o'er the sounding main, never to love again. I need a room. This is a Irish song. It says here, favored to the 4th position. The Irish men who are inclined to get married when they're not good for anything else. Until later in life. The refrain, which you could, appropriate moments, you can join me if you wish. The name of it is, I wish they'd do it now. I was born in Tipperary one day when I was young. I suppose, boys, that's the reason there's bloody on me tongue. I was the picture of me father, the doctor did allow. The girls all ran to kiss me then. I wish they'd do it now. Oh, I wish they'd do it now. Oh, I wish they'd do it now. The girls all ran to kiss me then. I wish they'd do it now. Then as I grew older, how the girls would laugh with glee. They'd press me to their bosoms and nurse me on their knee. They'd rock me in the cradle, but if I made a row, they'd take me in to sleep with them. I wish they'd do it now. Oh, I wish they'd do it now. They'd take me in to sleep with them. I wish they'd do it now. And the girls would take me out to bathe when the weather it was mild, and we'd roll and swim about like little shrimps so wild. They'd splash the water till it shone like pearls upon me brown, and they'd dry me nice all over. I wish they'd do it now. Oh, I wish they'd do it now. They'd dry me nice all over. I wish they'd do it now. It's very lonesome for a boy to lead a single life, so tonight I made up my mind to try and get a wife. My fortune is 6 stumping pigs, likewise a big old sow. There'll be lots of love and bacon for the girl who'll have me now. This is an Irish-American song. The Irish-Americans had a lot to do with the beginnings of the American musical, and in addition to George and Cohan, there are many more. And this comes from a musical called The McSorleys, and done by Harrigan and Hart, and they wrote over 25 musicals. This song I'd like to dedicate to my ancestors and for the hardships that they went through to make life a lot easier for me. And it's called The Old Feather Bed. In the county Mayo, a long time ago, my father himself took a wife. 'Twas all understood he would do what he could to provide for my mother through life. His father, old Dorothy, gave all the crockery, his table to eat of their bread. His mother, God save her, said all she could labor as a token of love was the old feather bed. My father, my mother, my sister, my brother, my granny, my auntie, big cousin Ted, my uncle the sailor, his nephew the tailor, all slept on the big mountain down feather bed. When the ship by the cove came over, you know, my husband and I, anyhow, took passage out right in the dead of the night, and we anchored ourselves in the bow. The rooms, they were jumbled, the ocean was tumbled, oh, sick of the sea and half fed. The wind kept a-roaring, but I kept a-snoring as I slept on the big bouncing down feather bed. My father, my brother, my sister, my mother, my granny, my auntie, and me cousin Ted, my uncle the sailor, his nephew the sailor, all slept on the big bouncing down feather bed. In all sorts of weather, I'd shake up the feathers. Me mother herself, she did pluck. She stuffed the old chick, 'twas herself that did, for to trim off the turkey or duck. It never was lumpy, make your back humpy, no bolster you need for your head. When I would get cozy, I'd lay down so cozy, and sleep in the big bouncing down feather bed. Me father, me mother, me sister, me brother, me granny and auntie, and me cousin Ted, me uncle the sailor, his nephew the tailor, all slept on the big bouncing down feather bed.
I'll be gone. It is springtime. Paul just said he doesn't have much spring left, but I think he has more than plenty. Another round of applause, Paul. All right, we come to the open mic section, and I just start looking around the room, and I say to my wife, "Do you have a poem to read?"
No, I do not.
Then she gets mad at me because she knows that. You have anything? 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 You do? Ladies and gentlemen, next up on the open mic, and first up on the open mic is Lucretia. Wait, come on up, Lucretia.
I was like, I don't know, I usually don't do this. I'm not much for getting in front of people, so. But I put it out to the universe. I said, if this is on my iPhone, I will do it. And it was, so.
I love iPhones.
I know. Well, it's not actually an iPhone, but. You said, the doctor said. Second person, third person, there is no proper tense. You're old enough to insist on privacy. Your explanation to me subject to your own nuanced reality. Does the heroin affect your hearing? Maybe you truly believe the emergency room doctor said a virus caused your heart to race out of control. Does the OxyContin work like a Rosetta Stone, translating what the doctor says to what you want to hear? Maybe a side effect is the rewiring of your temporal lobe, where language is processed and stored, changing, acute arrhythmia due to intravenous OxyContin abuse, to flu. How deep does the rewiring go? When I tell you, I love you and I'm worried, is that what you hear? Or do the words enter your ear like desperate mosquitoes at nightfall, annoying you as they fly through your brain, bounce off the bluegrass songs stored there, tunes we harmonized together during that last road trip home, wedge themselves between the Bible verses we memorized as children, and come to rest, hiding behind the fog of your addiction, muffled like Charlie Brown's teacher, so you hear instead, you fucked up again.
John Stanton, ladies and gentlemen.
I actually have one that we've been talking about at the workshop, working on a little bit, and then another one. All right. This is called Clothes for the Season. We take winter residents, table saws, nail guns, levels, wandering hallways, filling rooms with paint-splattered radio rock and roll, unlikely stories, Red Sox trades, rumored women, tearing out the insides of bedrooms, reframing them into someone else's idea of home. Greek coffee staring out windows onto marked street corners, empty sidewalks, sanding away the stuff of memory, late afternoon tea whistles, drunken Saturday nights, repentant Sunday mornings. No feeling now that love or tears happened, renovated, and waiting for a new season, when we will disappear into the fog, leaving only hammer marks and the soft pine of summer homes.
All right.
Nice.
There's only half of my comments, so it's right on. It is called Memories of a Middle-Aged Man Waking Late at Night to Pee. The words snuck up on me in that half-lit hallway, that long breath, the silent clock tick between awake and asleep. They spoke of a moment, cold seeping through your jacket, a bus station that knows just how alone you are. More so if you were just 19, deciding one bus for home, another to a woman very clearly not your mother. Will it make any sort of difference, that road at the end of loose change, counted by cold fingers, and the hope of a small French fry and a bus ticket? The words hung for a moment, trying to say something, peeking out at me like a face you think you remember, but decide you do not.
The workshop that John was talking about happens at the UMass Field Station every Tuesday night. And for anybody that might be interested, hey, what's happening? Might be interested, you can talk to me about that afterwards. It's from 7 to there's very little bourbon shared during that time that doesn't go between 2 or 3 people and the rest they're left wanting. I see Nicole over in the corner. Nicole, do you have a poem for us? Nicole Mangano, ladies and gentlemen.
I have 2 things to read for you guys today. The first one is called House. Mighty bellows of the ominous beast, guttural echoes in a maze of darkness, baritone growls closer to approach, scratches on the wall, rats hidden in the black of night, hair pricked along my spine as I realized no distance left to run from a monster in disguise. And then the second poem is by Pablo Neruda, and it's called If You Forget Me. I want you to know one thing. You know how this is. If I look at the crystal moon, at the red branch of the slow autumn at my window, if I touch near the fire, the impalpable ash, or the wrinkled body of the log, everything carries me to you, as if everything that exists, aromas, lights, metal, were little boats that sail toward those isles of yours that wait for me. Well now, if little by little you stop loving me, I shall stop loving you little by little. If suddenly you forget me, do not look for me, for I shall already have forgotten you. If you think it long and mad, the wind of banners that passes through my life, and you decide to leave me at the shore of the heart where I have roots, remember that one day, on that day, at that hour, I shall lift my arms and my roots will set off to seek another land. But if each day, each hour, you feel that you are destined for me with implacable sweetness, if each day a flower climbs up to your lips to seek me, ah, my love, ah, my own, in me all that fire is repeated, in me nothing is extinguished or forgotten. My love feeds on your love, beloved, and as long as you live it, will be in your arms without leaving mine.
close one of the students of the UMass semester, the Nantucket semester that y'all have been hearing about. And I asked each student, these are all students that are interested in science, but I asked them to put together their own personal anthology of favorite poems, sort of like you do with your iPod with music. And so they've done some exploration. Some of them know the poems that they go looking for those anthologies when they start out. Some, it's a complete voyage of discovery. And I'm pleased to announce that about 50% of them had some Pablo Neruda in them. So, and we just lost hydraulics on one side there. What happened? Thank you very much for the Pablo Neruda and for your own poem as well. I look around and I'm sorry, I can't bring your name to my head right off the bat. Do you have a poem to read? Laura Wassman. Laura Wassman, ladies and gentlemen, come on up.
Hello. I'm going to read from Marge Piercy today. And so I've recently been assisting my mom through the aging process. This is called My Mother's Novel. Married academic woman, 10 years younger, holding that microphone like a bazooka. Forgive me that I do some number of things that you fantasize but frame impossible. Understand, I am my mother's daughter, a small woman of large longings. Energy hurled through her, confined and fierce as in a wind tunnel. Born to a mean, harried poverty, cross-hatched by spidery fears, and fitfully lit by the explosions of politics, she married her way at length into the solid working class. A box of a house, a car she could not drive, a TV set she kept tuned to the blare of football, terrifying power tools, used wall-to-wall carpeting, protected by scattered rugs. Out of backyard posies permitted to fringe that proud, hanky lawn, her imagination hummed and made honey, occasionally exploding in mad queen swarms. I am her only novel. The plot is melodramatic. Hot lovers leap out of thickets. It makes you cry a lot, in between the revolutionary heroics and making good home-cooked soup. Understand, I am my mother's novel daughter. I have my duty to perform. I'm going to read one more. This is called To Have Without Holding. Learning to love differently is hard. Love with the hands wide open, love with the doors hanging on their hinges, the cupboard unlocked, the wind roaring and whimpering in the rooms, rustling the sheets and snapping the blinds that flap like rubber bands in an open palm. It hurts to love wide open, stretching the muscles that feels it as if they are made of wet plaster, then of blunt knives, then of sharp knives. It hurts to thwart the reflexes of grab, of clutch, to love and let go again and again. It pesters to remember the lover who is not in the bed, to hold back what is owed to the work that gutters like a candle in a cave without air, to love consciously, conscientiously, concretely, constructively. I can't do it. You say it's killing me, but you thrive. You glow on the street like a neon raspberry. You float and sail a helium balloon, bright bachelor's button blue and bobbing on the cold and hot winds of our breath, as we make and unmake in passionate diastole and systole the rhythm of our unbound bonding. To have and not to hold. To love with minimalized malice. Hunger and anger, moment by moment, balanced.
That poem in the wind, we've been feeling the wind this week, haven't we? Wind blowing everything. Jeremy, you do? Okay, next up, Jeremy Rainey.
This poem is called Drying Stones. Seal musk morning, beach grass, sand, pups gentle in the sauna sun, drying stones after April's rains gone, rolled in blubber mummy bags, black salt eyes look up without ear flaps. Two seals joke around in the surf break, slick and weightless, running on paddle legs, inchworming across wet and dry sand, humbled, happy. Laying on a dune, I can see them. 300 seals on a beach near the lighthouse, laying on lawn chairs, drinking the sea.
If at any point you're thinking, boy, I'd really like to hear some more of the poetry of the Nantucket semester, know that they'll have an anthology coming out shortly, and all students will be represented, and it's been pretty amazing to see these poems as they've been brought forth from the sand and from the surf, and that was pretty good, Jeremy, thank you. Bob, you have anything? Karen, do you have something for us? I'm going to get to Kathy Butterworth. Next up, Kathy Butterworth.
I really liked your seal poem. That was great. The other day, a seal crossed a 4-lane highway and climbed up the steps of the Portland, Maine hospital. Did you see it in the
Yeah, I
book?
saw that,
Yeah. A baby, a 30-pounder.
Low
Yeah.
birth weight, probably.
I have one about oyster catchers. They're my harbinger of spring. Everybody has their harbinger of spring. And for me, it's the oyster catcher. And they're back. They're coming back right now. And it just means spring to me. So this is just a little nod to the oyster catcher. Oyster catchers in Nantucket early April, so a little further down the road. They are on the beach, bills in sand like any day. I'm the one running to jack the heat in the truck. Rain reloads, wind beats on every living thing. Sand flies like bullets, while I duck behind the windshield, trying to make a reason a bird leaves Carolina. Dirt roads slip under puddles, water snakes ancient dunes. In the lowest tide, in my highest boots, I cross to the glades. Like pictures captured under glass, one nest after another underwater. Birds in the drier distance, their matter-of-fact stance, ready to rebuild at the first chance. And this is just my tribute to low tide, one of my favorite things in the world. Give me a low tide. Give me a low tide when dreams crack, when I don't fly to Bangkok or San Fran, but wake up, walk the dog, go to work. Then send me out on the wet sand just now new to squish and slap where few or none have been, to conquer foreign realms in my homeland. Thank you.
You may be wondering who the gentleman to my right is, and I'll wait until you do. And then I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeffrey Toshi, and he's with the Peg Channel here. And I want to say thank you for Jeff coming out. How about a round of applause for Jeff? Thank you very much. Let's see, who's got their hand up next on the open mic? That would be me. All right. Huh? Oh. Excuse me, it would not be me. Calm down, calm down. Hey Richie, how you doing?
Okay.
All right, come on over here now if you would. Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Richie.
I don't know, I have a couple of pieces of, I don't know if you call it prose, but I kind of collect little ditties, and it's always about love and relationships, so here we go. This is from Thornton Wilder's The Skin of Her Teeth. I didn't marry you because you were perfect. I didn't even marry you because I loved you. I married you because you gave me a promise. That promise made up for your faults, and the promise I gave you made up for mine. Two perfect people, two imperfect people got married, and it was that promise that made the marriage. And when our children were growing up, was it a house that protected them? And it wasn't our love that protected them. It was that house. And it was that promise. Thornton Wilder, Skin of Our Teeth. Excuse me. next one is from Tom Robbins, Still Life with Woodpecker. Who knows how to make love stay? When two people meet and fall in love, there's a sudden rush of magic. Magic is just naturally present then. We tend to feed on that gratuitous magic without striving to make any more. One day we wake up and find that the magic is gone. We hustle to get it back, but by then it's usually too late. We've used it all up. What we have to do is work like hell at making additional magic right from the start. It's hard work, but if we can remember to do that, we greatly improve our chances of making love stay. And the last one is from Leo Biscaglia. I don't remember what book, but it's just a line or two. I will love you no matter what. I will love you if you're stupid, if you slip and fall on your face, if you do the wrong thing, if you make mistakes, if you behave like a human being. I will love you no matter what. That's nice, right? Now I do have a real piece of poetry from David Ferry, Bewilderment. The poem is called Ancestral Lines. David is, I guess, just won this National Book Award. He's from Brookline, 88, so I guess he's entitled to write this poem, Ancestral Lines. It's as when following the other's lines, which are the tracks of somebody gone before me, leaving me mischievous clues, telling me who they were and who it was they weren't, or who it is I am because of them, or just for a moment reading them, I am. Although the next moment I'm back to myself and lost, my father at the piano saying to me, listen to this, he called the piece oral. And the nearest my father could come to saying what he made of that was lamely to say he didn't. Schumann didn't, my father didn't know why. What's in a dog's heart? I once asked in the poem. And Christopher Ricks, when he read it, said, search me. He wasn't just being funny, of course, he was right. You can't tell anything much about who you are by exercising on the romantic bars. But what are the wild waves saying? I don't know. And Shelley didn't know, and he knew he didn't. In his great poem, Ode to the West Wind, he said that the leaves of his pages were blowing away. Dead leaves, like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing.
I always count on Richard to bring poems of love, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Richard. Welcome. Jess is in the back. Hey, Jess, what's happening? Is there anybody else that has a burning desire to read something on the open mic today? Amanda Torsia. Come on up.
I'm not going to read something for you. I'm actually going to sing something.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my guitar today, but I have been studying a lot of Irish folk music lately as well. So this is one of my favorites. Oh, the money that I spent it in good company, and all the harm that I done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Oh, the comrades that e'er I had are sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts that e'er softly call. Good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Hoping that you'll be our musical feature the next time around. Would anybody like to see her around the next time? Nothing more daunting than singing a cappella. That was beautiful. Thank you. As we get older, we start to forget things. I think of my memories as bouncing balls. This poem is called Memory of a Bouncing Ball. I should remember his name. I don't. Met him at a yard sale my ex and I hosted, the kind that pays for legal costs and other niceties associated with the dissolution of joint property. Suffice it to say, mental anguish and chemical imbalance account for memory loss of particulars in this circumstance. I should remember his name. Not just some vague recollection, his height, that he wore glasses, we played racquetball together, I joined his club. I should remember his girlfriend's name, the nurse, who hovered over him when he, from time to time, would pass out briefly after a game or two. She'd chew all away, saying it happened frequently, and he didn't want anyone to fuss. He'd be fine. I think his name was Mark. The second poem is the second poem that I'm submitting to the Nantucket Semester's anthology. We spent this semester writing about our feelings about the ecology, all of us, and something that those of us that live here probably do a lot on a regular basis. And the poem is called Weird. Where at first light we pushed aside our mega-nuclear call, recycled war steel rent asunder, underground bunker wastrels. We had busy work to do. Wind and wave, conspiring anvil, driving high tides deep into the heart of the marsh we are. Barrier Beach breached, 3 megastorms in a month, deny climate change now. We are TV images, lip-synced songs, polyester fabrics, and hang. We walked on the moon, whoever we were, a YouTube video. Left rack and ruin, vast irradiated poison gyres to rival funerary pyres of the apocalypse. All for the mega, mega, mega sport of it. I have an issue with sugar. It's my one great passion in life. If there were anything other than poetry in my life, number 3 would be sugar. And we're really fortunate to have a truly talented baker with us today. Her name is Nancy Tyler. She's sitting up in the back there. And she has some cookies and some banana bread that she'd like you guys to groove on right now. There's some tea over there, so we're going to take a short break, get a little nosh, and then come back and we'll hear from James P. Arthur. Thank you very much to everybody on the open mic. A big round of applause for you. I'm now going to sing a song a cappella myself. I'll see you in about 15.
You could.
Have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, as if we haven't heard enough from Paul already, he has more to say to us. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul has a little bit. Don't push me. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul.
I'm doing a concert here, April Fool's Day evening, and I'm going to sing all funny and silly songs. So come and join me. 5:30.
5:30.
Is there a charge?
No.
So it's free and open to the public? Any other
When is
questions?
our poetry in April, do you remember?
That's a good question. In April, we have Joyce Pesaroff, and she's here on the 7th, I believe, and then on the 19th of May, we have Richard Cambridge. So those are our upcoming shows, and I can guarantee you that there'll be additions to those shows as we go along. So as people get back on the island, we'll be adding to those shows. We will probably have some cat juggling and also some saber rattling in the next show, so stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd like to introduce our featured poet for today, fresh off of his appearance at the AWP conference that just about everybody on Nantucket got to go to except for me and a couple of people here. I'm glad you didn't go, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. James Arthur's poems have appeared in the New Yorker, the New Republic Poetry, Plowshares, and the American Poetry Review. He has received the Amy Lowell Traveling Poetry Scholarship, a Stegner Fellowship, and a Discovery/The Nation Prize. He is currently a Potter Fellow at Princeton University, and his first book, Charms Against Lightning, has just been published by Copper Canyon Press and will be available after the reading up in back, and they're $15 a copy for those of you that are looking for the money in your wallets right now, because this is a really good book of poetry, and I'm sure that you're all going to want to have it. Just got to meet James this morning. He happens to be a friend of Elizabeth Bradfield, and so when he wrote me and said, "Hi, my name is Elizabeth Bradfield, would you be interested in having me as a feature at your spoken word event?" I wish I could have said you had me at Elizabeth Bradfield, because that's really all you need to do. Why are you standing there looking at me like that? My wife is looking at me like I'm giving birth to a strange and secret child or something. But without any further ado, and any more fish face from my wife, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for James P. Arthur.
All right, is the microphone at the right level, height there? Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. Well, before I get started, I just want to say I've been giving a lot of readings this year, and I have never felt more welcomed than I have this morning. This has just been such a joy being here and hearing your beautiful poems and music this afternoon. I'm thrilled to be a part of this, and thank you for coming out, and thank you for listening. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to start off with a poem that's about moving around from place to place. Many of the poems in Charms Against Lightning are about wandering, and I think particularly when I was a younger man, I had the idea that if I just kept moving and kept changing, I would finally end up somewhere where I would be perfectly myself and perfectly content. I'm sure that's a feeling that some of you have felt at one point or another as well. So this poem is about that search for a paradise that may not exist. It's called Utopia, both in the sense of paradise and in the sense of no place, which is what the word literally means. So, Utopia. Finally, he's found his own city, a postcard place that anyone would like, backlit by the romance of an unknown history. Here, sheets and hair perfume the air. Every gate is hammered silver, every song a song and dance. And the balloon seller bares her ivory shoulder for a kiss. The man who's spent enormously to feed a fantasy of being from no place, spent what he had and borrowed more, now is completely happy, except for an idea of an idea that he cannot outpace. That somehow he may have missed something that he should not have missed. Though no doubt this is better than lying on a cold suburban beach, admiring stars so far away he'd be seeing them as they were before the dawn of human speech. This is another country, not an ordinary place, where a man, no matter how exceptional he felt, would finally be erased. And the next poem, which picks up that theme of wandering, is based on a story that you all know, the story of Cain and Abel. And according to tradition, after Cain murders his brother Abel, he's sent east into Nod. And from what I understand, scholars for a long time tried to figure out where Nod had been exactly, where they tried to locate it on a map to figure out where, what country, what part of the world Cain had supposedly been sent to, and have only recently, with this sort of reconstruction of the Hebrew language in the 20th century, come to understand that Nod meant something totally different. So this poem is called The Land of Nod. Growing up, I barely knew the Bible, but read and reread the part when Cain drifted east, or was drawn that way, into a place of desolation, the land of Nod. There to begin with a wife of unknown origin, another race of men, under the mark of God. As a boy, I thought Nod would be a place where the blue scillas would bloom gray, a country of the rack and screw, the serrated sword, where the very serving cups were bone. As a grown man, I've heard that Nod never was a nation of Cain's offspring or anyone, but a mistranslation of wander. So Cain could go wherever and be a Nod. Far more than in God, I believe in Cain, who destroyed his own brother, and therefore, in any city, could have his wish and be alone. For a few years, I lived in St. Louis, and I was living in a very noisy apartment, and like a lot of you all who write poetry, I'm sure you I'm sure it's the same for you. I feel I do my best work when it's quiet. But I had some downstairs neighbors who played their TV at pretty high volume, 13 or 14 hours a day, and a band that was practicing every day across the street. And I wasn't getting a lot of writing done, and I thought I was just going to go nuts. I said, well, you know what, I'm going to write a poem. I'm going to write a poem about noise. So I tried writing.
I heard it this morning.
You heard it? Yeah. I decided that I would write a poem about noise, and it just came out as a lot of complaining and a lot of moaning and a lot of whining. I thought, no one's going to want to read this. So I decided to change tacks completely and write a poem that was celebrating noise. And as you're going to hear, I tried to fill it full of every poetic device imaginable, tried to pack them in like sardines. So you'll hear lots of onomatopoeia, lots of assonance, lots of rhyme. This poem is called In Praise of Noise. The sound begins with a furnace clicking awake in a two-room house, answered by a few, then more voices, gauges and old-fashioned watches ticking out of sync in growing number, so their tick, tick, tick fattens to a moan, joined by a horn's upbeat honkety-honk, then ringtones and speakers rehearsing drawn horsehair, air in a woodwind, or mimicking a hand slapping a polyester drumhead. But unlike these coarser frictions, playing the same every time. A car door bangs, a jackhammer hammers, and a bass line purrs through a wall. The sound congeals, sucking in more, a mechanical syrup in an IV drip, the automatic ruckus of a robotic ocean, a symphony no one wrote, confounding every pattern. Teach me the song that no one can sing, someday to be the song of everything. That idea of the music that confounds every pattern is really close to my heart. As you probably noticed, I use a lot of rhyme and I use a lot of fragments of meter in my poems, but I'm interested in trying to create poems that are rhythmical and full of sound, that are song-like, as many as the poems of my heroes were, but that are also that are not symmetrical and are not parallel in the way that a classical sonnet in iambic pentameter would be. I try to switch up the meter from line to line. I use tons of rhymes, but I don't use rhyme schemes. So it's all the rhythmical effects occur at very irregular intervals. This poem, I'm going to read another poem of my own, and then I'm going to read a few poems two poems by other poets before returning to a bit more of my own poetry. So this poem's called The Kitchen Weeps Onion. The kitchen weeps onion because the cook is dead. Pans strike chorus, and the ladles keep a knock-kneed stride. Burners gleam more brightly. Chives, chives, and chives. Everyone seems so tired, but the diners can't sleep. The kitchen tonight weeps onion, so everyone else must weep. What's the use in talking? Let's touch and turn apart. The cook is quiet, cold, unearthly, and the turnip breaks its heart. This is a poem that some of you may know. I'm sure some of you do know. It's by one of the poets whose work has been most important to me, E. Cummings. Len was talking about E. Cummings this morning, so that's when I decided for sure that to include this one. It's one of my very favorite poems. It's called Since Feeling is First. Since feeling is first, who pays any attention to the syntax of things will never wholly kiss you. Wholly to be a fool while spring is in the world, my blood approves. And kisses are a better fate than wisdom. Lady, I swear by all flowers. Don't cry. The best gesture of my brain is less than your eyelids flutter, which says we are for each other. Then laugh, leaning back in my arms, for life's not a paragraph, and death, I think, is no parenthesis. This is a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, another hero of mine, and I can see that she's got some other admirers too. I think she's a wonderful poet, and I don't think she's, I don't think she's received all the recognition that she deserves. I think she's really one of the greats of the last century. This poem's called I Shall Forget You Presently, My Dear. I shall forget you presently, my dear. So make the most of this. Your little day, your little month, your little half a year, ere I forget, or die, or move away, and we are done forever. By and by, I shall forget you, as I said. But now, if you entreat me with your loveliest lie, I will protest you with my favorite vow. I would indeed that love were longer lived, and oaths were not so brittle as they are. But so it is, and nature has contrived to struggle on without a break thus far. Whether or not we find what we are seeking is idle, biologically speaking. So this next poem of mine, I don't know, a lot of my friends, I'm sure maybe some of you can relate. A lot of my friends will use the expression back in the day when they want to refer to a period in time, but they're not exactly, they don't want to be too specific about what period in time they're referring to exactly. So maybe the 70s, maybe the 60s. In the case of some of my friends, I feel like maybe they're not too sure what period of time they're referring to exactly, but they have an idea that things were a certain way at some point, and that's what they want to talk about. So this poem is about back in the day, and it's called In a Parallel Universe. I mean, back in the day, said the face, meaning before he was born, when no one carried a phone, but people had them at home. Or before them, pre-Kennedy, pre-Nixon, when streetcars were unknown, and the young men whose sons would storm foxholes in World War I spent so much time standing around smoking. To go far away, you went by boat or train, and the near of today was far away, and you died in the town you were born in. Said the face, I'm not saying things were better back then. As well as he knew anything, he knew as long as there's been a then and a now, there's been someone to say the world was better back when. And I am not saying so, he said. I know there never was any Eden. But back in the day, if word had come down of Neil Armstrong landing on the moon, it would never have crossed your mind that the whole thing, the small step, a leap for mankind, was a lie filmed on a subterranean soundstage. This next poem is a love poem, and I wrote it years ago when I was traveling with a girl through Italy, and the place names in it are towns on the west coast of Italy along the Tyrrhenian Sea. The poem is called Tyrrhenian Sea. Your eyelashes. There's what I know about Anna Capri, and spelling out time in flashes, a lighthouse, and the bright houses drowning down by the sea. We swam, we drank, we passed a bottle on the waves in the dark. In Pompeii that was buried by fire, you ate smoke from my tongue. Your skin, a cinder tree shade. A polyglot boy sold parasols. There were dogs, alive and dead. A three-legged mutt turning circles. No omen we knew. In Assisi, where broad and shallow steps cross-cut and veered from street to street, we feared the holy orders. In Tivoli, we leaned on a balustrade. In Frascati, were cooled by a spigot. Why does the tourist mind always linger? It's no good, I know. But you are my eye's temple, and I've adored you where you stood. I recently became a father. I have a little boy, Henry, who is a year and 10 months old. And the last two poems that I'm going to read today are, and I'm not quite at them yet, but the last two poems that I'm going to read I wrote since Henry's birth. But before I get there, I'm going to read a few more poems, and one of them is a poem that I wrote before Henry was born. So this is a poem when fatherhood was kind of on the horizon, but was not yet upon me. And the poem's called Fatherhood. Someday, I'd like to have a daughter and give her a stuffy name that she'd hate. She and I could go galumphing out to a pond and net minnows she'd briefly keep alive. A serious, small person, a lover of ribbons and toboggans, of talking, waistcoat-wearing otters. She and I would rake up every leaf in November. Am I such a sap? Forgive me. Maybe I know more about sons. If I had one, I'd expect him to fling any tenderness back on my plate. To say, you're nudging me into the grave, when I'm telling him to live. To not forgive. Forget all but the worst of what I say, and magnify his victories to win my love. Years ago when I was living in Seattle, I was at a pretty bleak point in my life, and I wasn't sure if I was going to go on living. And I was caught in a storm outside, maybe storms in Nantucket are similar to storms in Seattle. I mean, when you get wet, you really get wet. And I was getting pelted by freezing rain, and I felt thoroughly sorry for myself. And someone went by on an ergonomic bicycle all of a sudden, a reclining bicycle, recumbent bicycle. And I was young enough to be outraged and really angry. I felt, is this messenger of mercy, some guy on his idiotic reclining bicycle? And I couldn't figure out what it could possibly mean. And it was only years later that I figured out what it meant. I think I had to be just a little bit older, and I had to grow up enough that I could see that I wasn't the center of the universe before I could really make any sense of it, though I knew I wanted to write about it, and it took me a long time. This poem took longer than any other poem to write. It's called Distracted by an Ergonomic Bicycle. On a rainy morning in the worst year of my life, as icy islets shelled the street, I shared a tremor with a Doberman leashed to a post. We two were all the world until a bicyclist shot by, riding like a backward birth, feet first, in level, gentle ease, with the season's hard breath between his teeth. The rain was almost ice, the sky mild and pale. I saw a milk carton bobbing by on a stream of melting sleet. A bicyclist. He rode away to his home, I guess. I went home where I undressed, left my jacket where it fell, went straight to bed and slept for 2 days straight. But those clicking wheels kept clicking in my head. And though I can't say why, I felt not only not myself, but that I've never been. That I was that man I hardly saw, hurling myself into the blast, and that everything I passed, dog, rain, cold, the other guy, I left in my wake, like afterbirth. And I'm going to read, so I'm going to wrap up by reading one more poem by someone else, and that's a poem by Theodore Redke, and then 2 last poems of my own, which I wrote since the birth of my son. This poem by Theodore Redke, I will try to do it justice, but I think it must have been something else to hear Theodore Redke himself read it. He was, by all accounts, a really powerful reader, and you can find recordings of him on the internet. I wish I had heard him, could hear him read in person. Yeah, his voice must have just filled up auditoriums, but I'll do my best with this one. It's one of my favorites. It's called I Knew a Woman. I knew a woman, lovely in her bones. When small birds sighed, she would sigh back at them. Ah, when she moved more ways than one. The shapes a bright container can contain. Of her choice virtues, only gods should speak, or English poets who grew up on Greek. I'd have them sing in chorus, cheek to cheek. How well her wishes went. She stroked my chin. She taught me turn and counter-turn and stand. She taught me touch, that undulant white skin. I nibbled meekly from her proffered hand. She was the sickle, poor I, the rake, coming behind her for her pretty sake. But what prodigious mowing we did make. Love likes a gander and adores a goose. Her full lips pursed the errant note to seize. She played it quick, she played it light and loose. My eyes, they dazzled at her flowing knees. Her several parts could keep a pure repose, or one hip quiver with a mobile nose. She moved in circles, and those circles moved. Let seed become grass and grass turn into hay. I'm martyr to emotion not my own. What's freedom for? To know eternity. I swear she cast a shadow white as stone. But who would count eternity in days? These old bones live to learn her wanton ways. I measure time by how a body sways. That's Theodore Redke, I Knew a Woman. One wonderful poem. This poem of my own is based on a story that I'm sure some of you know. It's called Goodnight Moon. It's a popular one in my household these days. So the poem is just called Goodnight Moon. I used to be as unsentimental as anyone could be. Now I'm almost absurd, a clown, carrying you on my shoulders, around and around Palmer Square, through the cold night air, as stores lock up and begin closing down. Good night, fair trade coffee. Good night, Prada shoes. Good night soon, my little son. You're a toothy, 2-foot something sumo, a giddy, violent elf, jabbing your finger at the moon, which you've begun noticing in the last week or two. Moom, moom. For you, the word ends with a mumming as it begins. for me, beginnings and endings are getting hard to tell apart. There was another child your mom and I conceived, who'd now be reading and teaching you to read, who we threw away when he or she was smaller than a watermelon seed. The chairs, the domestic bears, the clocks, the socks, the house. Once again, a strange cow springs from the green ground, beginning the enormous leap that will carry her above the moon. And the last poem I'm going to recite, and thank you again for listening. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you for having me. It's really been a pleasure. The last poem is called At Loose Ends. I'm out of work. No one will pay me to grind coffee, refile, or unload boxes, much less sit around talking to college kids about IMs. So I might as well roam all morning, spying on the filthy squirrels and on the shapes that disintegrating maple leaves have painted on the sidewalk. I might as well spend the morning talking to myself, hoping for meaning and unmeaning to braid and begin teaching me what to say. Some days I feel like a monarch at wing. Others as bland and fat-bottomed as a bowling pin. To love someone, I say, too loud, passing some guy near the hardware store. To love someone the way spawning salmon crawl upstream, the way the Arctic poppy turns to face the sun. It's hard letting go of bitterness, even knowing that bitterness is unsustaining, like gravel, like sand. But spawning salmon crawl upstream because they must. They're made for it. Thank you.
What do you think? Thank you very much, Jan. James is going to be up and back, and he'll be happy to sell you a book. And we're going to finish off the afternoon with some more music. Jess Campbell Black, some of you may know her from her work out at the pasture. She's a shepherd and a fine musician as well. And so while she's playing, James will be signing books up and back, and you guys get some more coffee or tea or cookies and hang around and talk to each other. It's been a great pleasure having you here, and a great pleasure having James here. And well, thank each and every one of you for coming out, because without an audience, the show just doesn't work, and you've all been great, especially the ears. You can tell when people are listening when they get the nuance of a well-turned phrase. Another round of applause for James Arthur, ladies and gentlemen. And without any further ado, we're going to welcome to the stage Jess Campbell.
How many songs do you want to play? Two? Okay. Three. All right, here we go. I only do it like once a year, go out in public.
Driving on down, Lord, there's
show you how to get round this time. I never know we'll forget the songs they sang that night. From out here you can see all the colors of the moon. Yeah, and you can hear the trains coming round. It's gonna be here soon. Train's coming round, it's gonna be here soon.
I don't really know the names of them, so. I can't give you those. But I'll play one more. I don't play guitar very well, so I have to cheat on the key. It's all right. Broken down. You know you can't believe it. I thought I would fly, but I am only human. Oh, at least until I die. If you ever woke up to the river rolling by your side, looking up to the sky to
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. Please see James in the back. Please make sure you clean up on those cookies, because otherwise I will, and then I'll go into some kind of attack. That wouldn't be good. Doc, you got anything else? Okay, go ahead.
We're gonna, after we buy all of James's books and finish thanking Channel 18 for our Penn Station for filming this, we're gonna probably go to the Rose and Crown and talk more poetry and have some beer. So feel free to join us if you want to do either one. I mean, I'm not buying lunch for everyone or anything, but your presence.
Drinks on Sarah.
But it's great seeing you all, especially on a rainy, well, actually, nice, lovely day. But thanks for coming, and we'll see you soon.